Daphne Moore, contributor with Cascade Media Group. Today we have Dr. Ebonee Shaw, funding consultant and TEDx speaker. So welcome, Dr. Shaw. I'm gonna call you Ebony, but welcome, Dr. Shaw.
Thanks. Thank you for having me.
Tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how you got into fundraising, nonprofit work. Tell us a bit about yourself. I'm stumbling over my words. Sorry.
That's all right. So I'm Dr. Ebonee Shaw, and I'm located in the St. Louis area. I've been working in nonprofit fundraising. This year made 21 years. And in that time, I've raised funds for organizations as small as grassroots organizations that are kind of just getting started and getting their foot in the door, all the way up to nationwide nonprofits that help communities across the region and across our country. My preference as I've gone through these years, I know that in order to be successful in fundraising, you have to connect to the mission. It has to be something that you really, really believe in, because you need to be able to throw yourself into that and the meaning behind it. And especially when you're asking for money, nobody will believe you if you don't sound passionate about that. So it needs to be something that kind of connects with your morals. For me, that is usually things that involve the community that I live in. I love it. I'm from North County inside of St. Louis, a little town called Berkeley, Missouri. I've been here all my life. I live in the house I grew up in. I just love it here. So, and I like to see things change for the people that live around me and the children that I see growing up and my neighbors that I have known forever, or the people that are just now coming in. Also, what's important to me are causes that affect children and in the health of children. Because I think Whitney Houston said it best: "Children are the future." She said it, she
Children
meant
of the
it,
future.
and it's a real thing. So, in my time, I've raised about a little over $20 million in the community. I started in Seattle, Washington, right before I graduated undergrad, working with the Susan G. Komen race up there. And then I went down to New Orleans, which is where I went to school at, and I started with Catholic Charities. And then following Hurricane Katrina, when I came home, I went to Catholic Charities St. Louis, and from there it just kind of blossomed.
Okay, so let's talk about your TEDx talk. You talked about resilient communities and what is your motivator. Can you tell the audience a little bit about, summarize a little bit about your talk and a little bit more about your motivators?
So my talk was about building resilient communities, was kind of the theme for everyone. And when I thought about that theme, I tried to think of something that could connect, right? Because when you're working with a TEDx talk, you want it to cross communities. So you don't want to just talk to a certain place or a certain people. You want it to be able to cross over and be relevant. So I spoke about finding your motivators and how your motivators can drive you and drive the people around you. And it's really important in leadership, I think, and it can relate to anything. So if you think about the people that you lead, which could be people that are subordinates, could be people that work for you, it could be the people that live around you, or say you're on a board or something, it could be those people that are in that group or people that you're trying to lead. And just think about the things that motivate them. And if you can play into those motivators and focus on them, typically you can keep people around you longer and keep them motivated on the work that they're doing because it's something that's passionate to them. So, kind of
Right.
like how I feel about fundraising, if you can play to someone's passions, then you can keep them involved a little bit longer.
Okay. So let's talk about, you do a lot of event management and you've had some big events. And I really want to hone in on the Racial Equity Summit because, after Mike Brown passed away, Ford through Ferguson, and a lot of nonprofits got together to put on that conference. Can you talk about how that helps to build community and to build resilience based off of the events that you all have, and then just talk more about some of those other large events you've been a part of.
Yeah, so the Racial Equity Summit, as you mentioned, was started following the outcry in Ferguson, which was 10 years ago now. And some local organizations, Forward Through Ferguson, So University of Missouri, St. Louis, Washington University, St. Louis Community Foundation, there's a number of them got together to figure out, what they could do different and how they could motivate the community to help solve the racial divide and the social injustice that was happening at that time. And so from that event and from the plan that was created, was it the Ferguson plan?
Yes.
The plan that was created, there was a big plan that was created about how to look at racial injustice, social justice, and how to combat police brutality at the time. And from that plan, the St. Louis, the Racial Equity Summit was created. So they just had their second summit last year, and it's held biannually. So the next one will be in 2025. Um, and it was a large event full of really big speakers. The speaker that we had last year was Nikki Giovanni, and she was amazing. She's 82 years old, and she speaks her mind. She does not hold back, and she don't care how you feel about it, really.
Not at all. Not at all.
She really don't care how you feel about it. She has something to say, and she exactly said those things. And surrounding her were about 40 different sessions that were curated from the community. We pulled together a group of people that were not going to be speakers, but maybe influencers or have their finger on the pulse of what's going on in St. Louis. And that group of people, of advisors, chose the speakers over a period of time through looking through their bios. They may have interviewed them, and they curated all the speaking sessions that were held that day. And they ranged in all kinds of topics, from fundraising to food security. We even had one day that was specifically focused on youth, which is extremely important because those are the ones that are coming up behind us, right?
Yeah.
Those of us that are working right now learned from somebody, and those people have moved on, right? So it's always our job to reach back and pull along the people that are coming behind us so that they can take our place. That's so important. And I can't wait till we get to the rest of the interview so I could go into that part about how we
We
need to
can
reach
go
back.
into it right now, girl. We can go to it right now.
It's so important to train people to take your place. Everybody needs to have a succession plan in life. I think you need one. You do it for your families when you create your wills and any type of plan given that you do when you set your children up to win. But you also need to do it for the places that you work for, and the things that you believe in. So not just work, because you may not own your job. So I don't know how that feels about how you feel about that. But if you're on any type of social group, your sororities, your National Coalition of 100 Black Women, and all those different groups,
Yeah.
if you truly believe in the things that you're serving, you need to take the time to teach others how to do what you're doing so that when
Right.
you pass on, or if you decide to move on, or life be life, and when life lifes, somebody else can step into your place and keep the torch going, and they don't have to start from zero trying to figure it out again.
Yeah,
So
I actually attended the youth summit, and it was inspiring. You could tell that people are training up the youth within that group that was presented, and
oh
they were
yeah,
very impressive.
and they are excited to do it.
Yeah.
Like it didn't take much to convince them. And these kids were already, some of them were already involved in some other groups. So there, St. Louis County and St. Louis City have a youth group, a government group that they pull together that kind of helps them with planning and youth initiatives in the area. I'm assuming other larger cities are doing the same thing. If they're not, they need to.
Yes, they
But
do.
another thing that they need to do, and what we probably could have done better, was reaching out to those kids that don't usually get that platform and seeing what their life is like and what they're going through. And I would say moving forward, that's one of the things that probably needs to be emphasized next time. And that goes for everything, not just the youth groups, but
Right.
finding those folks that have something to say but don't usually have the platform, or may not know how to get involved the way that they want to. Is finding those people and giving them the chance to say what needs to be heard, because you don't really need to hear from people that's doing it all the time.
I agree. I agree. So let's talk a little bit about finding your voice. And you found your voice in fundraising and the communities and organizations you work with. A lot of times, people like the crisis nursery, for example. the crisis nursery was not doing what it was doing until Dr. Ebonee Shaw got there, as far as fundraising and really getting that message out. Can you really talk about how you built up that strategy to get them from what the events used to look like to what it is now?
Yeah. So when I started there, I started as the events director or something. Sounds about right. And really, what I did was I followed the leadership that was already there. So at the time, the CEO was Diane Mueller, and she had a vision for what she wanted everything to look like. So they had these events in place that they were already doing, and they were doing a fine job with them. And my goal was kind of take them to the next step. So those my personal goals is that when I come into something and I'm doing it, I want it to be better than what it was. And when I'm ready to move on, I want to leave it in a better place so that somebody coming up behind me can just read through the files and pick up and just
Yeah.
get going. And then they can put their own spin on it however they want to. So the Crisis Nursery had three or four major events. There was the gala, a golf tournament, the Young Professionals event, which is where you and I met, and then the Celebrity Waiters Night, which was probably my favorite event.
That was
And
my favorite event.
it is so good.
So much fun.
The Celebrity Waiters Night was actually it really was just an idea that was kind of happening, and it was an event where we would go to a different restaurant and we would invite St. Louis celebrities. The celebrity is a very loose term for people that know a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's the original influencer term. Now they call them influencers.
Right, right.
Like they were just people that knew people. And they had about 25 celebrities and they were raising about $40,000. And I was there 9 years. And by the time I left, we had about 120 celebrities. We were at three restaurants and we raised about $300,000. So it really grew over time, but it was all about giving people, elevating people. So finding those people, kind of like our youth, kind of like the people that don't really have a voice, but and telling them like you really got something going on here. You really are somebody, and that needs to be elevated on another platform. So we would just bring all these people together one night in August. Um, they would go to different restaurants and they would really just look for tips. So the normal wait staff in the restaurant does their job as they normally would any other night. Just on this night, we flooded the place with people. Our celebrities would go around looking for tips, selling raffle tickets, getting donations, and creating buzz. And it was just a phenomenal event. I really liked that one.
Yeah. And let's talk about the Scottish. I always say this wrong, but the Scottish Rite
Walker Scottish Rite Clinic.
Clinic. There you go, because I'm always gonna say it backwards. But let's talk about that, because for me, that was one event that really, first of all, the way you designed the event was amazing. That's just number one. But number two, the cause. And I don't think people really understand how much work the center actually does to help young children, specifically Black young children
Mm-hmm.
with speech pathology, like, and other things too. But the speech part is really what got me to be like, man, this is amazing. And a lot of our young people often do not get the services that they need. And an organization that you're working with now, Tabernacle Community Development Corporation, has a center that everybody like, why they putting that center in there? They don't need that. But then what
Yes,
happened,
yes.
Dr. Shaw? What happened?
So I started with the Walker Scottish Rite Clinic, which is a mouthful, is a program of Maryville University. So Maryville University has a couple of community-based programs that are community facing, meaning that they probably don't work with the students as much. Probably the students benefit by being able to do their practicums there because they have degrees in those areas. But the Walker Clinic focuses on speech therapy for children ages 2 to 6, and the goal is to get them prepared for kindergarten. So I was able to connect to the Walker Clinic because my son went through speech therapy when he was in pre-K and in the Head Start program, and he continued through elementary school. And it's so important to be able to get those kids to a place where they can speak and talk because some of these children are nonverbal. And it's really prominent in the African American community
Yes.
and our Hispanic communities. And just being able to get those kids kind of the help that they need. One thing I know as a parent when I was going through it is that you live with your kids, right? So you are able to recognize the things that they do. So I can interpret for him because I hear it all the time, like learning the language.
Right.
But when they go into public, they don't know what they're saying. And you know it's important for kids to be able to come back home and tell you what happened when they
Yes.
were wherever they were. And for them to be able to communicate that. And it's just a life skill like driving. These are things that you have to be able to do so that you can, as you go through life, you can state your mission and tell people who you are and what you're doing. So the Walker Clinic had their main location is at Maryville University, but then there are 4 or 5 clinics across the region, all the way out to Troy County and way south. And the one area that was missing was North St. Louis City and North St. Louis County. And why that's important is because those areas are predominantly African American. You might know more stats on those areas than I do, Daphne, but
Yeah. But they're important because there's normally no hospitals, no clinics, no medical needs. And so TCDC, what we call Tabernacle Community Development Corporation, started building out a facility that housed medical, banking, social service, and then the Walker Clinic. And
yeah,
everybody still was like, why y'all building this clinic? And then they ended up with a waiting list.
a waiting list because the kids in the area are not receiving the services that they need. Um, to St. Louis, look, I was just looking. One of the best hospitals in Missouri is Children's Hospital. It's in St. Louis. It is 2 miles from the 63107 zip code, which is where the Tabernacle Community Development Corporation lives. TCDC created a venue called the Hub, and it's really a community resource center that's completely full of all kinds of services, from case management to there's coding for kids. Mercy Clinic put a clinic in there that's specific to children and women because that zip code has the second highest infant mortality rate. 2 miles from the best children's hospital
Miles. Yep.
in the whole state. And it's unacceptable. And so Pastor Andre Alexander really had a vision for that area and is coming together with the team to just bring the services just right on down the street, not that far away, bring the services to the community as they're needed. And I'm just going to throw this out here because you never know who's listening. Our next goal for that clinic is to put in a dialysis center because that's also missing. And I have a friend who is a nephrologist at St. Luke's Hospital and mentioned that North St. Louis City and County have the highest rates of African Americans on dialysis in the whole country. The
Yeah,
whole
but
entire
there's
country.
not any services.
There are
There's
no services up there, and they need it. I mean, you need those services. It's very important. So, shameless plug in case somebody out there in land wants to help us figure
but
that out.
that's what you do as a fundraiser. You help educate people on the needs of the organizations that you're working with, and that starts to build those partnerships. So can you talk about your partnerships, because you have a lot of long-standing partnerships with a lot of funders within the region and actually nationally?
I always say, if you do not talk, people do not know what you need, and therefore they don't know how to help you. So if you just put it out there in the atmosphere, the things that you need, you will be honestly surprised, genuinely, if you're genuine about it, how many things come to you.
Yeah.
So there are a number of funders in the region, but also kind of nationwide that are looking for places to partner with because they want to keep their name, well in the community too, and they truly have a passion for helping whatever group that they're helping. So I found that when you're looking for partners, it needs to be something kind of like in a regular relationship, right?
Yep.
You date first, right? So you get to know them. You want to know everything about them. What are the things that they like? What are the things that they love? Who do they want to help? How do they want to help? And if you listen, fundraising is 90% listening. It's only about 5 to 10% is the ask part of it. But 90% of it is listening to what people want to do, and you're helping them realize their dreams. I say fundraising is kind of like a sales job, and people that work in development don't like when I say that, but I truly believe that because I feel like I'm selling hopes and dreams. So it's not necessarily a product, but I'm helping you, the donor or the person or the board member, the community person, realize the things that live inside of you that are
Right.
important to you, and I'm helping you connect those to something real. So, in looking for partnerships, it's the dating phase first, and then you go a little bit further. That's the ask part. That's when you're asking for things. But typically, you don't have to go too far because if you do well at the dating part, they just start throwing things at you. There's one funder foundation I really like to highlight. It's the Light Foundation, Light, and they are a family foundation founded, and they're in Olivet, Missouri. And their goal is to support children's causes across the state, and in many kind of ways. So it's I like to tell people fundraising is not always about receiving dollars,
Right.
right? So you're looking for ways to relieve your budget. That could be through money, that could be through grants, that could be through in-kind donations. In-kind meaning that it's something that you don't have to pay for. It's a service that they give you for free. And they do lots of things like video recording and production. And production is expensive.
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
when you're trying to tell your story, that is not the cheapest thing to do, and it's a skill set that most people don't have. Like I don't have it, but I can figure out something with my phone, but that's not really what's going to sell somebody. You need
Right.
somebody to help you come and tell your story, which is kind of what you're doing with this platform here, is helping people tell their stories, so that when we put our stories out into the atmosphere, when we put out the things that other people are doing, it may wake up something inside of you, may make you realize something, that some unheld, some potential that's been bottled up inside that you need to release.
So, with that, my final question, you're absolutely right. We are trying to tell different stories that haven't been told, but let's talk about something that has been bottled up in you. When you
Oh,
ran for mayor of the city of Berkeley, Missouri, can you talk about that experience and why did you decide to do it? And I know a lot of us helped you along the way, but just
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about that experience.
So I mentioned when we first started that I live in Berkeley, Missouri. Population about 22,000. Median income is about 32,000, whereas the median income in the state of Missouri is 88,000. So just so you know, kind of where we lie in that role. Um, Growing up, my mother was a part of was political in all kinds of ways. She was an alderwoman, she was a councilwoman at large, but then she used that opportunity to go to national level. I was on the board of directors for the National League of Cities and Women in Government, which are nationwide organizations. And so always kind of watching her and the things that she was doing. And then my dad was an administrator. He was the principal at the high school in Berkeley where we lived at. So kind of watching them and interacting with them, and they know everybody, right? Because they both taught for over 30 years. So my neighbors, they know the neighbors, but they also know their parents. They know the kids and the grandkids, and just how
Right.
it all connects together. And so I always thought I wanted to do something, but I just really didn't know, honestly, Daphne, what that was. Even though y'all was telling people were telling me what I should do and could do. And when I saw, first of all, I've always worked on the election campaigns. So every presidential one since Mr. Obama ran in 2008, I've been kind of fired up about the things that happen around politics and government, because that is where the change happens for
Yes.
almost everything. Everything that you want to do economic wise, be it a business or your nonprofits, that stuff all springs from policies that are created. But policies need to be created by people that look like the people that's benefiting from said policies. And until you have a seat at the table to be able to tell people your story or be able to influence the things that are happening, you kind of stuck with whatever you get handed.
Yeah.
It's how I feel. Shameless plug: if you're not registered to vote, you got until October
Oh,
7th to register for the presidential election. Although you really should have voted in that congressional one in August, which was more important.
AB.
That will go on our next interview. But when I saw all the people that were running for mayor in the city of Berkeley, like I said, I've been living here forever, and the people on the council here, including the mayor, have been there since I was in middle school. I'm 45 years old. I was in middle school in 1990. So the fact that the same people are running the government tells me that, what did we say before? You need to pull people along to bring them up in your succession plan so they know how to do the things that are
Yep.
happening. And so because I want to see change around here, I was like, if these folks can run, so can I. And that's what I did. So on March 13th, exactly 19 days before the April 2nd mayoral election, I went and I signed up to be a candidate. I ran with the help of all my friends and people I did not even know. So many people that I really didn't even know. They came out to help me knock on doors, put the signs out, help me pay for the signage and the flyers and all those different things. Coming to my house every day, and especially on the weekends, all day long. We knocking on doors. And so I did not win, but it's okay. It's okay.
But you were a write-in candidate, and you came in what place? A write-in candidate, and you came
Second.
second. Second. She wasn't even on the ballot, so you had to literally write her name. So just imagine, has she been on the ballot? Next time she's gonna be on the ballot because we're gonna make sure. But that gives a lot of people hope, because if you can come in second as a write-in candidate, you're a bad woman. Shut your mouth, girl. So I want to thank you for taking time to talk to me. This will not be the last time we talk. And I just want to leave everyone with this: conversations matter. So let's talk. Thank you.
This is brought to you by Kansas City Business Association, working to improve our community.